Copperdale High School is not it. As in, like, the build that is on this lot, it's just not it. I'm sorry. But I feel like the style of this is just peak EA built this and they had no clue what they were doing. Every time that I see that cafeteria and it's like this massive room and then there's like 3 tables in there, I just get so sad. And then like the outside as well, it's pretty much empty. And on top of that, that weird creepy basement. Yeah, no. This is why today I would like to rebuild the school for my own custom save file and hopefully make a version that is much better. And I'm going to do it using only high school years as well, because I want to be kind of smart with the way I use packs for my save file. And I really don't like figuring out floor plans on camera, so this is going to come together a little quickly here at first, because I left out a lot of me figuring out where every room should go and what it should look like from the outside as well. But it did record a few clips of what it looked like in between. And here is one of them where I showed off a layout that I came up with. As you can see, for some rooms I placed in some filler furniture to represent what I want to do with the room later. For other rooms, I don't really know what I want to do yet, but I'll figure it out eventually. But as you can see, I came up with 3 floors. Really, it's more so 2 floors, and then the third one is kind of like a little rooftop section, which I think is so cool. And another really cool thing that I decided to add is that when I just said that I only used high school years, I kind of lied a little bit. Because there is one thing from another pack that I decided to use, and that is the magic portals from Realm of Magic. And I used these to create a functional elevator. So what I did is I sized down the portals and hid them in a little debug wall. And I actually made like a little kit for this. If you want to build something like this on your own lot as well, you can go to my gallery page and I have this room ready for you here. And this has the sized down portals hidden in the walls ready for you. You only need to complete the rooms and then you can move them wherever you like. You still have to fiddle with this a little bit because, I don't know, it's quite weird, but hopefully this room makes it easier for you. Here is what it looks like with the windows now all in place. I think this ends up being quite a weird shape, but I still like it. And then I also took care of the roof. And I thought if I made the entire roof accessible to Sims, that would maybe be a little bit much and also maybe a little bit unsafe. So I decided to just basically have like one little roof section that is accessible and then the rest is just off limits. I was pretty nervous about this place not working out the way I intended it to, so I did actually playtest a day at the school with what I have at this moment, just to make sure that the Sims would use all of the items correctly and also get to class in time with the elevators and stuff, which worked quite well. The animation for this is just them kind of fading out and then fading back in at the level that they wanted to go to. I remember originally being quite upset that the portal animation is this lazy, but it is kind of convenient in the end because that means we can also use it for stuff like this. And I did also block off the elevators to make sure that in case you don't have Realm of Magic that this place also still works, and it does. It takes them a little bit longer to take the stairs obviously, but they still get everywhere in time. The first thing that I took care of was the outside, and usually the outside ends up being its own project, I guess. I don't really know what to call it. But with this one, the outside ended up being kind of a bunch of mini projects. They really made this lot really big, to their own disadvantage honestly, because like I mentioned in the beginning, in the original build that is on this lot by default, the outside is so boring and kind of empty, and that might honestly be the #1 thing that bugs me. So for my version, I decided to go all out on the exterior and make sure that there's something to do everywhere, or nearly everywhere. Right now, I'm working on the front and also kind of on that little rooftop section simultaneously. My build process is usually a big mess and I just jump around a lot, and you can really tell here as well. But so the front section of the building outside ends up being pretty much just that. I basically just turned it into like a big parking lot, I guess. And this place was absolutely carried by debug items. I found the little school bus that is in the front of this build in debug, and that just absolutely carried everything. I made like a little bus parking spot of some sort, and the rooftop I turned into basically like a student garden, and this might just be my favorite spot in the school in the end. I made it look super overgrown and everything, and I even added in some fairy lights. Also, you can see the portal VFX in here. That is because I kind of moved the portals around a little bit. It took me a while to like know where I wanted everything. And they're kind of weird. You can only get them with cheats from debug. And I believe there are actually a lot of items where you can tell that they weren't really meant for us as the players. And in this case, because the portal wasn't really ever meant to like moved around by a player the way I did here, the VFX end up being a bit weird. They're kind of delayed whenever you move the object. But don't worry, when you turn on live mode, the animation does catch up after a while and move to the correct spot. That's also something to keep in mind in case you want to download that make your own functional elevator kit that I showed in the beginning. I did also write that in the description on the gallery. I wrote a little guide on how to use that thing in general, so you want to definitely read through that if you want to download that room. But so up here on the roof, I placed some picnic benches and a lot of planter boxes, and just overall covered it up real good with all sorts of plants I could find. I did also place a telescope in case you want to die, and in order to prevent your Sims from dying, which actually doesn't help at all because Sims can't fall off buildings, but I did also place this fence around the roof that's from debug. And I think that also just really tied it together. And as for the plants that I used up here, I tried to use a lot of plants that seem really, really messy. In my head, I was kind of like, the students themselves probably have to manage this place, and so it's probably like really chaotic. I did also come up here later with a sim and planted some actual plants in the planter boxes, as in crops, as in, you know, the plants that you can actually interact with in the game and not just the ones that are for decoration. And here I started to add in some terrain paint, which is very brave. There is like a glitch where your terrain paint can sometimes disappear, which is why usually you definitely want to do terrain paint as one of the last steps. And this glitch has actually never happened to me before. So I wasn't really thinking here that it might, and I just had a go at it. And over the course of building this, it also didn't happen to me, which is really strange to me. I see so many people complain about it, and I just get away with it. The terrain paint gods must like me. I believe it happens when you load out of the lot and then come back later, which would make a lot of sense because I don't think whenever I build that I really like, you know, go to other lots and do other stuff in between. I usually just build it and I leave once it's done, really straightforward. So maybe that's why it's never happened to me, I don't know. Either way, back to the build. Like I said, this out here is just going to be kind of like the front of the building and nothing much. I did build that sort of bus parking spot, which I think is so cute. And to the right of it is like this little shed. And this isn't actually something that I built. This is from debug as well. There are a lot of fake houses in debug, but I never really thought of looking through it and specifically looking for like a shed or something. But I found this one coincidentally. I'm assuming this is actually somewhere in Copperdale, but I've got no clue where. But I thought that would add a lot of visual interest and also just take up a lot of space that I then don't need to worry about. I imagine maybe there's some utility stuff in there, or maybe it's like equipment for the caretaker or something. And then I did also place the little fake bus station, and I made like a little bike parking station. And other than that, I didn't really place anything out here that your Sims can interact with. I think there is a bench that I put somewhere. But that's it. And that's because I didn't really want your Sims to hang out in the front here. Oh, and here is a little build tip for if you also work with debug items a lot, which is kind of a bit obvious, but still I wanted to mention it, is that there are a bunch of lights, like these street lights in debug, that look cool but don't actually work, like they don't light up, and you can just place in these fake lights on top of them, and that way they will actually light up. Or, well, it'll look like it. And right here there's a little time skip in the video where I skipped over some less interesting parts. There is like this pathway and there is trees on one side of it, and then the other side is on the lot that we are building on here. So I decided to like copy and paste basically and make it look like the pathway has trees both to the left and to the right. And I also built a whole playground in the front of the lot, which I don't think will ever get used because this lot is for teenagers after all and not for children, but it's a good way to cover up some more space. And then right now in this clip, I'm building a little gazebo. Fun fact, a very long time ago, I had actually already built a high school for my save file. And to be honest, it is quite cool. But looking at it now, I just feel like I can do a much better job. But that version did have a gazebo as well, that I really only put in for no reason other than that I felt like it. But I really liked it, so I decided to also put it in this version of my high school. That older version that I built was also in sort of like a modern style with these really big windows too. But that one I gave a red theme to. Meanwhile, this one I kept entirely in blue. I believe the original build is meant to be some sort of art deco thing. And I gotta say, I really don't like art deco that much. I don't know what it is. I just can't get myself to like it very much, unfortunately. Art deco buildings, that is. Whenever I look up pictures of interiors or even just the patterns, those I really like. Those I actually find really pretty with all of the details, and it just looks so fancy. That I am a big fan of, which seems pretty ironic. I don't think there's quite any other style where I like dislike the architecture so much, but then the interiors I'm a big fan of. But yeah, long story short, that's why I decided to go for more of like a modern theme. And also one thing that I only realized very recently is that the original build, it kind of has like copper colors. And the world that this is in is called Copperdale, right? I mean, again, in my opinion, not executed very well, but it still has that. You can still tell that's what they were going for. So it's like right on theme, which is a pretty cool detail. That does make me like the original build like 1% more. I kind of wish that I had tried this for this place as well. Again, this one only ends up being entirely blue, but maybe I could have worked in some orange or something as well. Anyway, back to the build. As you can see, right now I'm making another building in the back here, and you might be wondering what that is. This is something that I also did in my old version of the high school, and it is going to be the dorm rooms. The high school that comes with this pack is not meant to be like a boarding school or something, and instead it's just meant to be like a regular high school. But I really like the idea of also including some dorm rooms that in case you want to play as if it was a boarding school, you totally can. And if you don't want to, you can just kind of ignore that building back there. And gameplay wise, this works out totally fine as well. I was a bit unsure at first because I kind of expected the game to force you to go back home, but you can select that you want to stay late at the high school and, well, you can just not go home. And when it's time for school to start the next morning, it totally works as well. So yeah, I thought that could be a cool thing to add in case you want to play with the high school a little bit differently. And also a cool thing to add so that we have something going on in the back. Because again, this lot is very big and we gotta fill it somehow. Here I'm making yet another build in the back to cover up some more space, and this is going to be the greenhouse. And I know I just created like a rooftop garden for the students, so you could say I'm kind of making sort of the same thing again, yet another garden area. But I really like the idea of a rooftop garden, and I also really like the idea of a greenhouse. And this is my build, and I can do whatever I want with my build. And I decided I want to have both things in my build. And I'm not actually decorating the inside of these buildings back here yet, because I wanted to do the inside later on, and these are also interiors, so I want to do them later on. Might be a bit silly, but whatever. And now I'm drawing in a little path on the west side? If the front is the south? I don't know, on the gazebo side. And I'm kind of struggling a little bit with the terrain. Oh, that's something I totally forgot to mention up until now. I did use, as you can see, I did use terrain tools as well to kind of have 2 levels in the back. That's another build tip of mine that's probably kind of obvious, but I still thought I should mention it, is that if you have a really large outdoor space, you definitely want to do different levels. I think a lot of people are actually kind of scared of the terrain tools because, they are quite weird. And you never know if they might break your lot and make areas inaccessible because you messed up somehow. But still, if you want to build like parks and such, I would always recommend doing something with terrain, unfortunately. But having it go up like a few steps just adds a lot of visual interest. Anyway, while I was talking about that, you saw me put in like ramps next to certain stairs on this building. There aren't any wheelchair users in The Sims, but I thought it could be fun to add because we already put in the elevators, and I was like, hey, this is like the one opportunity where we could try and make something that's accessible. Although, spoiler alert, I do kind of ruin it. There are still some areas that aren't accessible. Like, for example, this little chess club area that I'm building right here, which is down a couple of steps, and therefore, that wouldn't work. But still, I thought they would make for a cute, realistic detail. What I did is I just placed a roof and then gave it like the, what is that, concrete texture that is in the base game? I don't know what material that is, but something that looks like it fits in with the rest of the path that I use. And these are also not the most realistic, like you can't place any handrails next to them, which makes them very unsafe. And I'm also not sure if they're maybe not too steep and like what angle they need to be so that people can actually use them and don't roll right back off. I guess if they wouldn't work at all realistically, we can also just pretend that they're for decoration or something. Although that might be worse. Imagine you're in a wheelchair and you get to a place and you're just like, yay, they have a ramp, I can actually go in here. And then they're like, oh, no. This is just for decoration. And you're just like, what? Either way, this is totally not a problem in The Sims, and I'm also behind on the yapping and I need to catch up. So what you just saw me do there is I built the little chess area for the chess club, like I said, and then I also built a little area next to the dorm rooms for the cheer club. I did build like a little painting class outside, and I made like a little picnic area. And then I also skipped ahead doing a lot of bush and tree placing and also a lot of rock placing this time around. But yeah, I decided to skip over a lot of that because it's just not that interesting. When it comes to the club areas that I just built, I do realize that they're not really functional because with the clubs that come with this pack, your Sims just kind of disappear for a little while and then return eventually. You know what I'm thinking? If you have the Get Together expansion, it might be best to just make your own club using that club system and completely ignore the ones that are in this pack. I think that would maybe be a lot more fun. And also you can create more clubs, like maybe a swimming team or a gardening club or a let's do our homework together in the library club or something. Oh, this is where I did the big switcheroo. If you remember in the beginning where I showed the layout that I came up with initially, I had the cafeteria all the way to the left and then like the principal's office as well as some other rooms all the way to the right. But I decided to switch it around because this way, going to the cafeteria from class when it's break time takes less long. I usually don't really like min-max my builds and think of, Sims pathing and such, but for this one, I really just didn't want the build to feel frustrating to play with. And here I'm kind of already decorating the principal's office a little bit. I had the problem that with this layout, the principal's office would have absolutely no windows. And the same also goes for like the staff room that I made right next to it. I wasn't really worried about the staff room. I was worried though about the principal's office because I think she spends a lot of time in there. But then I was like, hey, what if we pretend that the no window situation was definitely 100% intentional? And what if I decorate the office to be like dark and scary and whatnot? That would fit very well. So I already placed in some furniture here to see if that would work out, and it does. Ooh, and this is my favorite detail that I'm so glad that I thought of this. The circular skylight. I mean, look at this thing. I did also add a skylight in the little utility room that I made because there were no windows in there and I felt a little bad. Yeah, but I'm just so glad that I thought of this, and I think it looks so cool when the sun shines through it as well. I get so excited about this in general with all of my builds. Whenever the sun goes through the windows very nicely. I don't know, I feel like it's my cave woman brain being like, ooga booga, fireball, go boom through cave hole. So pretty. And I also had to look at it in tab mode as well, just to see it from the inside, and yeah. And the next thing that I took care of was the little dorm building, as in the interior of that. And in here you can see I already placed down some furniture to try and figure out what I want to do. And this first room is just kind of like a communal space. I just placed down some tables, a mini kitchen that you can't really cook anything with, but you can get snacks. In my mind, I was like, the students would surely get their food at the cafeteria, which is open pretty much all throughout the day, like a lot longer than I expected, so it does work out that way. And it's also not that far from here. I added like a little back door, so you basically only need to walk across the little plaza, I guess. I don't know what to call it, just the outside area, and you're pretty much there immediately. I did also give them a bathroom with some showers. And there are 3 dorm rooms in here, which isn't a lot. If this was a proper boarding school, this building would need to be like 10 times bigger. But I thought that if you want to pretend this is a boarding school, no other NPCs will pretend that this is a boarding school with you. So if I had built like a massive dorm building, you would be in there all by yourself. So instead, I decided to go for 3 rooms, and 2 of them are for 1 sim and 1 of them is for 2 sims. And I tried to have each one have like their own personal style. And I did also include the special windows from this pack in the build. I didn't use them in the high school itself, but I did use them here. And the reason they're so special is because your sims can actually go through them. Like, there is actually a proper animation where they'll open the window and kind of climb through to the other side, which is pretty cool. I did also include some flat roofs that your sims can get to using exactly these windows. I did also include them in the dorm room downstairs, and I did also place the furniture in a way where technically they're accessible, although in the first floor they're not really like usable. It's pretty weird. The sims always prefer using the doors over the windows. So if you had a sim in that downstairs dorm room and you told them to walk outside pretty much in front of one of the windows, even if it would be a lot shorter to go through the window, they will use the door and walk all the way around. So sims will only use the windows if there is literally no other option. I do get why they did this. Sims pathing is really weird, and if doors and windows had the same priority, I just know Sims would always use the windows and just take the strangest paths to get everywhere. And honestly, I'm fine with that, like I said, but why didn't they make it so that you can click on the windows and manually tell your sim to go through them if you wanted to? Surely that wouldn't be that hard to implement, but what do I know? And the next thing that I did is take care of the greenhouse out here. And I once again really like how you can see the shadow of the glass roof on the floor. It's that cave woman brain again. And I brought Savannah here to plant some actual plants that you can interact with in the planter boxes as well, who, as it turns out, hates gardening, so I made her have like the worst day of her life. And I guess thinking of the whole like we have two gardens sort of issue again, I guess a solution could be that we can just pretend that the garden on the rooftop is sort of taken care of by the students, and then this one is more official by the actual school. But yeah, I did also place some decorative plants as well, and a little table in the middle with some equipment on it, nothing special really. And afterwards I finally got to decorating the inside of the actual high school. And the first thing I took care of was the principal's office, because I already had a lot of furniture placed in here, like I talked about. And again, I decided to make this kind of dark and scary. I honestly think that this place, the way it ended up being, fits in perfectly with the principal that comes with this pack. It's kind of giving Disney villain Leia vibes with the black and the gold and everything. Very cool. And then right next door, I decided to make like a staff room. I also already mentioned that, right? And I didn't really know what to place in here. It ended up being another mini kitchen where you can't really make anything except for snacks. And then I just placed like a desk, a table, and a sofa, I believe. And this room ended up being a little bit sad because it's just so small. In my ideal dream high school build with this pack, I would have loved to make like a really big fancy staff room with all sorts of things, but the reality is that there are only 2 teachers in this high school, so making like a really big and fancy staff room would have been way over the top, and they already don't really use this room much at all to begin with. I believe during my entire time playtesting, I didn't see one of the teachers go in here once, which is pretty sad. Where again, I'm like, surely they could have done something with the code to ensure that teachers would at some point walk in here, maybe during lunchtime or something. Because there is actually a special staff door, which I think is very cool. But yeah, it's fine. And then the last room that we need to furnish, that is at the end of this hallway that we're working on right now, of this little section here, is the library, where again, in the high school of my dreams, I would have loved to make like a really big library, but nobody ever really comes here. Once again, I'm not entirely sure how many Sims I actually saw here during my playtesting. Probably also because this room is like not necessary for gameplay at all. I just put it here because I thought it would be fitting. I still think it turned out very cool though, and it's kind of far away from everything else, but that was kind of the point of my big switcheroo. Originally, I had the cafeteria in the spot and the library where the cafeteria is now, and I think it just makes a lot of sense to, you know, put the rooms that matter less further away from everything else. But yeah, I obviously place a lot of bookshelves and also some tables that you can do your homework at, as well as a few cozy spots to read books in. Here I'm putting in some of the final details, and then I moved on to decorating the locker room. Is this room 100% necessary? Especially considering it's quite big and pretty much useless to the gameplay. Yeah, I don't think it is, but I still really like the idea of putting something like this in, so I just went for it. So your Sims will have to go through here first before they can get to that really big pool that I made, as well as the little gym section that I want to include in a bit. And I had a really cool idea for this place, I think, because high school years comes with like a clothing rack, or I don't know what the correct term for it would be, but it's kind of like a rack and you can hang clothes onto it. It's pretty cute for bedrooms and all sorts of things. And I decided to grab 2 benches from base game and sort of place them back to back, and in the middle have one of those racks and, you know, hang some clothing from it. I don't know if you would actually have something like this in a real locker room, but I thought it was quite a smart detail. Yeah, and then I also took care of the pool as well as the gym section, which goes by quite fast here in the video. But I mean, I also didn't really do much here. And now I jumped all the way to the right downstairs and took care of the cafeteria. I discovered that you can very easily just extend the little cafeteria bar thing, whatever this is called, with some island counters. And I also had to make my own custom checkerboard floor, where at first I tried black, but I thought black was quite harsh. So I instead replaced the black tiles with blue tiles, and I really like how this looks. I'm a really big fan of checkerboard patterns. I don't know what it is, but it just looks really fancy to me. Plus, in The Sims, it's a really easy way to add some interest to a floor in a room where you don't really have that much going on, which was perfect for this place because I wanted to leave a lot of open space so that Sims can properly walk around and hopefully don't get stuck anywhere. And then right next to the cafeteria, I also took care of this bathroom down here, which I just copied the same bathroom downstairs and pasted it to the upstairs. I thought of this while doing the layout of like, oh, I probably don't want to do this twice, and so I just left in the same empty shape for later. And then these next couple of clips are kind of all over the place. Again, my build process can be quite chaotic. I did some stuff to the little indoor section that is at the top floor at the roof. And I did also grab a bunch of things from Debug for the little utility room and got to work in here. As you can see, I placed some boxes and just some pipes that I found, as well as a little crafting bench. I don't know how much sense this makes you, but I thought it might be a little detail that might be quite useful to you in case you want to practice your handiness skill. And then afterwards, I furnished a larger bathroom that is to the left here. And is this really necessary? I don't think so. I could have totally built a smaller bathroom with just like 1 or 2 stalls, the same way that I did on the right side of the building just then. But I thought it might be cool to have a bigger bathroom for storytelling purposes. Because I feel like in a lot of stories or in media that is set at a high school, there's always some drama going on in the bathroom. And these smaller bathrooms that I built, again, don't really have that much space in them. So if you wanted to have, I don't know, like a secret meeting in the bathroom or whatever, you couldn't really do it in there. So I thought it might be nice to maybe have a larger one as well. I wasn't so sure what to do with this room at first, but I ended up deciding to go with a band classroom. So I built like a little stage and placed some instruments on there, and I think it turns out quite cool. And then afterwards, I finally got to building the classrooms, the most important part. And I really like how these came out. They're a bit smaller than the rooms in the original build that is on this lot by default. But honestly, I think that's a good thing, perhaps. I do think it means that less students will spawn here, but that does also mean less chaos. And I kind of decorated these simultaneously because I placed down a lot of the furniture in them. And I'm really happy with how these came out. I think they turned out really cozy, and I would have loved to go here and study here at this school, which I think is a very good sign. Like whenever you build something in The Sims and you're just like, yeah, I would love to visit this place in real life. And to be honest, this build does remind me a little bit of the school that I went to, which I should totally tell a story. So I should clarify. This build reminds me a little bit of a section in my high school because most of it was kind of like a concrete block. We had like really ugly like brick walls. Imagine the brick block from Minecraft. That was our walls. But then at some point while I was there, they decided they should extend the school. I think they didn't have enough rooms and stuff, and so they just decided to add a whole new wing to it. And that new building was nothing like the rest of the school. It was more in this modern style as well, which is why it reminds me of that. And at first we were super excited about finally getting new rooms that aren't like 200 years old or something. But very soon we realized that this new section was a little bit of a disaster. There were a couple of things, but what I found the funniest detail is that very quickly after we started to have lessons in that new section, we realized, hold up, there aren't any bins. Not in the classrooms, not in the hallways. The entire section, that entire new wing that they constructed and paid so much money for, not a single bin anywhere. And I remember just thinking to myself, that is a mistake that I would make if I were to build a high school in The Sims. And here's some actual professional architect or whatever you would call them actually made that mistake in real life. That was hilarious to me. And by the way, we're done. Here's what it looks like from the outside. Again, I am super happy with this. And let me also show you the floor plan, like from above. And did I manage to make it better than the original version that I built a very long time ago? I definitely think so. I really like how this turned out. And I'm also very proud of a lot of the little details that I added. And if you want to play with this lot, you can download it off the gallery. My EA account is called LadyLoea, and this will just be called Copperdale High School. And once again, you only need to have high school years for this to be functional. And if you have other packs as well, you do get a few bonus items. I already talked about the magic portals that will make the elevators functional, but I did also later on place in some bonus items. Right now I'm showing off the version with just the high school years items, by the way. But if you download this and you have a few extra packs, for example seasons, I did also place some bees in the greenhouse, for example. And then meanwhile, if you don't have that pack, you don't even need to worry about it because it's still entirely functional without any as well. Right now I'm showing off a lot of the rooms from the inside very quickly. Here is the pool that we built, and then directly afterwards here are the small bathrooms that I added. And here is also a look at the cafeteria, which I very much like. And it appears that one of the test sims left like a half-eaten slider or whatever that is. That'll also be in the download, so have fun with that. Next up are the classrooms, where I did also record a little clip with a bunch of sims in here. And this next clip is once again showing off that entrance hall thing that I built with a pretty skylight. Still a very big fan of this. And here is the utility room. Not that special. I did also include that sprinkler system in here in case one of your sims starts a fire. Oh, and here is the big bathroom for big drama. And I talked about my own high school while I built this, but here is the science room. I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to place that really big, what is that, telescope? No, microscope, that's the word. I really like the big windows in this build and how I can look into the classrooms and see all of the little sims in there. Wouldn't be so convenient in real life because I just know that I would spend the entire lesson just looking out there onto the street. The people out there would surely be a lot more interesting than the lesson. And here is the room all the way at the top where the camera gets a little funky, and also the rooftop section, of course, which looks so cool in this camera mode. And also here is Savannah having the worst day of her life once again because I made her plant things. Speaking of plants, here is the greenhouse. I still really love the roof in here. And here is also a clip of the playground out in the front that I didn't really show off on camera yet. But yeah, here it is. Here is also the painting class outside, as well as the little hangout area. And then right next to it, there's of course the little chess club area where your sims can go and play chess. Here is some more clips of the overall outside, and then afterwards also the area for the other club, the cheer club section. And this one is right next to the dorm building, which honestly might be my favorite part. I'm not sure. I think I have several parts that could be my favorite part. I just like the whole thing overall. Let's just stick with that. I like the whole thing overall. But yeah, here is what that looks like from the inside. This is the bathroom that I made in this building. And then let me also show you what the dorm rooms look like in tab mode, which I think look very cool. High School Years just has so many cool items for bedrooms. I mean, it does make a lot of sense. But I made one of the dorm rooms be kind of like an artist's dorm room. The other one that's upstairs I made super cutesy and pink and everything. Downstairs is the room that is shared by two Sims, and one of them is really into sports and the other one is meant to be into video games. With that, here are some final clips of the outside, and thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of this very long video. Next time is going to be a very long video again because I'll be building a magical wizard mansion. I hope to see you there. Bye!